From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Knapsack.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and I'm happy to be here.
We're here to rank things. This is Star Wars Ranked. We have a pretty simple concept. We have a topic today, planets in the Lucas era, and then we're going to rank them 10 to 1. We're going to kind of work together, show our work publicly as we build our list, and we want to hear what your planets are as well. As always, today's show is brought to you by our merch store, Fourth Wall. Check the links down below here on YouTube. Get some new merch. We are adding things daily, so check it out. Fourth Wall dash. I know someone named Dasha. I think that's why I'm saying Dosh instead of Dash every time I read this ad.
Fourth Wall. There's something very funny about it. Maybe it'll be a future thing. That's the way websites are communicated, or a great social media platform.
Yeah,
there's your millions, Ken. Dosh.
And shout out to Kevin Smeth's wife, Dasha. All right, so check out the Fourth Wall Shop. A lot of cool things there. We are going to get right to it today. Joseph, we are looking at planets in the Lucas era, original trilogy, prequels, and we're throwing in the Clone Wars, even though it bleeds over. A lot of planets to choose from. Getting your thoughts right now on how you approach this.
Yeah, this was really, as we always say with the Ranked, we do these episodes because they're fun, but then it's also a torture. I tried to kind of make a list of my favorites, and then that just turned into a list of kind of making a lot of the planets, not every single one from the Clone Wars, because that's a lot. And I'm always torn, and we'll see how we go, between what is sort of right. Like if you were to tell a normal human being who likes Star Wars, here's my list of favorite Star Wars planets, they would expect most of the famous ones on them. But then I always have this weird desire to do like, but what's an outside of the box pick? But ultimately, I think I come back to emotion in honesty for myself of which planets do I have an emotional connection with and why. And I love what you said about showing our work. Scary when you're doing your taxes. Great when you're talking about Star Wars so people understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, the metrics maybe emerge during the episodes, as that's also the case with our show Subjective Wars when we would do that. But I like what you're talking about there, heart. That's kind of the key to being a Star Wars fan. What do you gravitate to? We get a lot over 11 years of doing this. We have received this question a lot of, what planet would you live on? Naboo, Endor. There's two choices. I don't know. I'm not going to live on Hoth, but we're here more about the planets that we grew up obsessed with. Dreaming about, wondering about. Sometimes it's just like, what's going on there? Maybe you'd like to be there. Aesthetic, what happens on there, how you're attached to them. And there's big planets, I'm sure, that will be listed here today, but I'm with you. I was like, I don't want to get too cute, but I want to be honest. And this is our favorite, not necessarily the best.
Oh, yeah. And planets I would live on is an entirely different episode, which I look forward to doing in the future.
Absolutely. Well, it's you and I here today. Jennifer sends her regards, everyone. Not here for this episode. I'll begin the bidding, so we can have you close at number 1. I am going to dive into the prequels, and the reason we're kind of doing the Lucas era is we could even divide it up even more. But I think the original trilogy, a top 10 list might just be the list, right?
We could barely make it on top 10.
Yeah. But I'm going to start with a planet we don't spend a ton of time on, at least on film, but in other series, maybe pops up. My memory actually doesn't completely serve me on this one, but I've always loved this planet. And as might come up a few times today, Joseph, at least with me, I'm sure with you, a video game helped me love this even more, and that is Mygeeto. Mygeeto. Most known, perhaps, as the final resting spot of Ki-Adi-Mundi. Rest in peace. But I love, just from the start, I love the look at it. It's in that Order 66 sequence, so there's a lot going on, and it is emotional. I feel bad for Ki-Adi-Mundi. He made a lot of mistakes over his career. This we know. But that look on his face, I've made a huge mistake face he gives. That kind of is the headline of the planet, but I love the look. Snowy, cold, windy, high spots, a lot of bridges, a lot of things going on. So I was always like, what is going on that planet? Learned it's Mygeeto. And then that first Battlefront game, or maybe it's Battlefront 2, the 2005 editions, we're in the mid 2000s, the aughts, as it were, and you got to play on that level. And that made me just love this planet more. I have a little obsession with it. Would love to see it show up again in a TV show or a film. You know, Jedi Starfighter, have it end on Mygeeto, have them fly through Mygeeto. I don't know. Much like I love seeing other classic planets show up in other shows. Get and spend more time on the surface of those planets. I think Mygeeto deserves that. It's my number 10 choice.
Now this is great because you started with Deep Cut, so our backs are already against the wall for including a lot of the classics that people would expect. I love this choice. I thought definitely some choices from the montage of death. Order 66 would show up when we were doing the Star Wars trivia for the old Schmodown. I tried to create mnemonic devices for remembering who died on which planet. So anytime this comes up, I say to myself, Kiadi Mundi murdered on Mygeeto.
Kiadi Mundi Moody murdered on Mygeeto.
Kiadi Mundi murdered on Mygeeto. Murdered on Mygeeto. Yeah, so the planet itself, yeah, I love that it is snowy and cold for one of the kind of like main images of the Order 66 montage, one of the Jedi that we recognize the most, and I think is shot with the most tragedy. For me, it's kind of fitting that it's on this kind of cold, overcast planet. Looking at the pictures of it online, I love that it is not just, hey, they happen to be on a bridge, but there's these weird kind of space age beehive buildings, and it looks like there's some infrastructure, maybe some population built into the bridge. Which is great and fascinating. There's a lot of that great, weirder world building in this montage as Star Wars sort of grew beyond the planet being one environment of weather, which is the original trilogy game, and building into weirder science fiction visions. I think Mygeeto is one of the best. Also, gotta say, Ken, Googled Mygeeto, and a toy that I've never seen came up. The Star Wars Battle Pack, Battle on Mygeeto. You can get it for $160. And in the package, you got a big droid. I think one of the Octopura, whatever droids. Kiadi Mundi, and then a trooper with their blaster held Kiadi Mundi's
Ready
side.
to shoot him?
Ready to shoot him. So great. So awful. Battle on Mygeeto, indeed.
Love that. I'm doing a quick check. Appearances. It did appear in the Kanan comic, which is a great comic run by Greg Weisman. Check that out from back in the day. And then it's mentioned in Star Wars Rebels. So in terms of canon, that might be it. So there you go. Unless that's wrong, that entry in Wikipedia. I do want more. So there we go. We're off and running with the weird, wacky, wild Mygeeto. You sir, at number 9. What do we got?
Well, this is a potential for a bigger one, but I'm just gonna put it in right away because it is one that lives large in my heart and imagination. It's not a planet I want to live on, but from the original trilogy, it is Hoth. Now, the reason that I include Hoth is, hey, a lot of cool things happen on this planet. The Wampa scene, the great tauntaun noises, the Battle of Hoth, which was, it's so easy to forget, like such a great and bold revolution of like, great, we figured out how to mostly make space battles look cool when we have the black to rely on of space. What if we just take that advantage away from ourselves entirely and still make it work? There's so many great shots, so much great lore of is filmed in one of the countries that my ancestors hail from, Norway. The lore of, hey, it's too cold for our cameras, but hey, Mark Hamill, just go outside the hotel and we'll shoot you from indoors, falling into the snow. It's just like, it's such a magic of cinema, the illusion of cinema story. Go on and on about why I love the scenes of Hoth, but at the end of the day, Ken, this is an emotional choice for me. This is the last planet I'd want to live on. It's not very exciting. Is a planet. We don't know much about it other than there are caves, and the cycle of life includes Two animals that we are aware
Yeah,
of.
that way we know of.
The
Yeah.
wampa and the tauntaun, just the prey and the predator. I'm sure there's other wildlife in
Yeah.
nature on Hoth. Are we seeing it in the extra cold season? And there's a less cold season. Who knows? I'm sure some cross section book shows us what the thermal core's temperature on Hoth is. But for me, the point is, I grew up largely in Minnesota, which has blazing hot summers and really nasty winters often, and sometimes really nasty winters with massive amounts of snow. And so it was one of the images where I felt a little closer to this fantasy. And in moments that were literally physically miserable, of you got to walk 2 blocks home from the bus stop and the snow is like 4 feet, and at that time I'm maybe 4 feet too, and I got my moon boots, which do not seal and have no protection. You're crunching down into the snow and you're feeling it come into your boot, and there's a specific cold when the snow touches your ankle that's just hell. Cold hell. And those miserable moments of mundane life in a snowbound place were cool because I got to pretend to be Luke Skywalker fighting for his life. And I think it's that emotional connection of, I have been through the hell of Hoth, and I know what Luke is feeling when he collapses outside of that hotel in Norway. That's it for me.
That is wonderful. That is great. No, yeah, absolutely get the connection to it. Kind of jealous that you got to step outside your house. And where's little Joseph going? He's being Luke Skywalker in the snow again. He's gonna fall down. Yeah, obsessed with this planet too. Also, I think it's important to note, like in a series, a franchise that has that reputation for, hey, the whole planet is a blank. I think that really is set up with this planet, where we go to Tatooine, yes, a planet that might show up here today, we don't know, and you get the whole planet is beach, and I know that's Scarif, but it's sand, and for my childhood, I got the sand dunes near me, same thing. But then Hoth shows up, and it's like, in the next film, it's all snow, like that just kind of continues to play out in the most wonderful way in Star Wars. So I really give the planet credit for that, and I'm obsessed with it too. And there's been additional stories, some stuff from a certain point of view books, the Empire one, that kind of explain life on there a little bit more. It always made sense to me that they'd go hide out here, but I always, as a kid, was wondering, maybe because that's why that question comes up a lot, of what planet would you live on. Like, what was it like to be stationed on Hoth? You couldn't just go for a stroll. You couldn't go down to the coffee shop. You're all in that cave together. You got to make that work. The speeders aren't adjusting to the cold. You've apparently, in a short amount of time, taught tauntauns to, transport you around this icy tundra. So there's a lot of like questions that I had as a kid, which carries on to adult. Even when you get the answers, I get obsessed with what goes on that planet. And speaking of video games, almost every video game in Star Wars history has driven home the fact that that's a great place to have a space battle on the ground.
Oh, yes. The crunch of the snow, the trying to whip around the AT-ATs. Growing up not around snow, did it seem fantastic to you because of Hoth? When you encountered snow, did you also feel like, oh, Hoth?
Yeah, a little bit. It helped me. I did go yearly for a long time up to Green Valley Lake, which is in Big Bear, California, where my great aunt and uncle lived. And so I was one of the kids that got to experience snow. But I've known folks who like didn't touch snow till like 30, 20, 40, which I know is weird for a lot of people in the rest of the country. But growing up in California by the beach, it was kind of a thing. But yeah, it added to the allure, and it's no joke. I mean, we got the first 2 planets are pretty cold, so I'm drawn to. I grew up by the beach. What else is out there in the galaxy?
Yeah, great.
Choice. Classic planet, Hoth on the board. All right, we're going to number 8, and I'm gonna stretch myself a little bit here because I can't immediately roll off a lot of things that I know about the planet's history, which is also. Great, because there's a lot of additional shows and stories that are all about this planet, and that we have learned and continue to learn. But when I think of the Clone Wars series and planets, and like, ooh, that's something we've always heard about, but now we get to go there. It is Mandalore at number 8 for me. Everything about what we got to experience on Mandalore during the Clone Wars, the landscape, the ravaged landscape, the cubist community that they all live in, this utopia, Prime Minister Almach just spreading lies about Django, everything about it, Satine Kryze, Bo-Katan, of course, later on, Corky, who we love to mention. That was just a great example of going back to something that might have been only mentioned, that maybe we saw or read about in a book or something that I missed, but now let's go figure out what that is. And let's maybe redefine it. Let's actually define it. And then that builds its own lore going forward. And of course, the Mandalorian series comes out, and we get a lot more about its history. We get a lot more about its people. And it is such a planet that tells the story of its people, both good and bad. So getting to go there again, getting to learn more. I love the episode, as I believe you do as well, of Bo-Katan and Din Djarin going beneath, looking for the mythosaur, and everything Bo-Katan says about, is all this ritual, none of it's real, and then she stares into the eye of the myth. I absolutely love that it happens on that planet, which was so mythical for so long. So I love the time they spent there, and I love going back. Love Clone Wars Season 7, Battle of Mandalore. I love that became just a planet that a lot of wonderful plot happens on, but it was a myth to me as a young fan growing up. So Mandalore is my number 8.
Yeah, Mandalore was on my list. You're freeing me up for some other choices. That's great, but I'm really with you. I think that there's a ton of great planets in the Clone Wars. I think the original trilogy obviously was, hey, we need to film in a real location, and Doctor Who has cornered the market on quarries. So how else can we make things look fantastic? All desert, all snow, all forest, all jungle, and it did fire people's imaginations, and it was really successful for the budget and the reality at the time. And then there's a little bit more expansion of what can be done in the prequels, but I feel like just Lucas always imagined these Star Wars planets that were like just this rich oil painting on the cover of a crappy paperback that he found at a used bookstore, a crappy sci-fi paperback, right? Of just like, this planet has upside down mountains and they're green and they shoot diamonds, and just like weirdness, give me, and he starts to get to explore that with, some of the planets that we see in the prequels, like Utapau and Mygeeto and things like that. Of like, it's kind of a natural environment, but it's a little bit more weird sci-fi, Felucia, all those kind of places. And of all of that, I think that gets explored even more in Clone Wars. I think Mandalore is the most fascinating to me because it isn't so much about the natural environment. There's that element of it. A lot of the planet is scarred and desolate, and they live in these dome cities, which is, total paperback sci-fi. But the fact that all of that kind of imagination was about like, well, what would the city look like? I want to tell a story of this cultured civilization that has this long history of culture and refinement, and a part of that it was violence. You could have easily looked at Boba Fett and said, I'm going to make, the homeworld is Mad Max, inside the Thunderdome. But to tell the story that they wanted to tell, that he wanted to tell in the Clone Wars, of violence is a part of our history, and armor is a part of our tradition, and weapons are a part of our tradition, but so is art. So is landscaping. So is architecture. And so to just go just all the way to the wall with the Cubist choice, not just like the brilliant, Mandalorian Guernicas everywhere, those great images, but like they're so into cubism. That's the way they trim their trees as well.
Yeah.
Be cubes. It's so kind of sci-fi paperback combined with the kind of deep cultural world building that Lucas always strives for. It's one of those things of like, it's not just cool, it really helps tell the story. When Satine is sitting there arguing for, we can put the armor away, it can be a part of our tradition, but we don't need to be always about violence and conflict. And to see the desolate landscape outside contrasted with the cultured, thoughtful architecture is so great.
Absolutely love it. And it keeps in line with the Star Wars ideas on planets. The whole planet is a sci-fi. That's That's kind of what it is. And I love learning more of it. It's just fascinating. It's so many fascinating characters there. So, all right, Mandalore, number 8. You've been freed up, sir. What's your number 7?
Ooh, well, speaking of Clone Wars, we'll stay in that general realm, and I'm gonna go with one of my favorite planets that was not created in the Clone Wars, but we got to see it in the Clone Wars, and that is Dathomir, home
Ooh.
of the Night Sisters.
Ooh, yeah.
I just went on and on about Mandalore as this great picture of a sci-fi planet. Dathomir is a perfect portrait of a fantasy planet.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars is, I think, more space fantasy than science fiction, but obviously it's a combination of the two. I think Dathomir so broke away from just it's an environment. It's an environment that you would see in a nightmare. It's it's a jungle hell utopia nightmare place. It's the fear of what a witch's planet would look like. Just the
Yeah.
constant mist, the red. Every tree looks like it is going to reach out and grab you. It is a haunted forest mixed with a hellscape.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
love it. It's so all mood all the time, and I think the design is fantastic. And those episodes that are as heartbreaking it is when Grievous and the Separatists lay waste to Dathomir.
Yeah.
Just the world building of like, oh yeah, we we web up
Yeah.
our corpses in case they need to come to life as an army. Like
Just
you
in
do.
case. Dathomir, the whole planet is a vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole
Great choice.
planet is a tomb. Yeah.
And if you got more to say, add it. But I think great choice.
No. That's a big picture.
Based solely almost on the name. I think Dathomir is one of the great Star Wars names because anytime a villain or a witch or anyone in Star Wars says it, man, it sends kind of shivers up your spine. And even playing in video games, the Fallen Order game, when you're running around and you get people jumping out at you and creatures that you got to kill, it's creepy and it allows, the horror element of Star Wars that a lot of people want, and we get in some bits. It allows it to come to life. And as someone who my immediate reaction to witches in Star Wars back in the day, Clone Wars era, and I know they came from it was the Courtship of Princess Leia, right? It was kind of the first mention of them or whatever. But yeah, I had a little bit of like, what is this? What is this? And I was immediately won over, in large part because of the planet. It's like a more, dare I say, more dangerous, darker. Though I'm not just saying all witches are dark, evil villains. That's not true at all. But it's a more darker version of like Dagobah, where that's a planet of enlightenment and mystery, and yes, danger, things to discover. Dathomir is like this. It's a darker vibe to pull you in, maybe take you out.
Yeah. Like if Indiana Jones and Dracula had to meet on a planet, it would be Dathomir. It's so like there's all that sort of adventure and mystery of the sort of jungle, bog, forest. It's all of these sort of fairy tale, what's in there vibes, mixed with all of the caves. And I love seeing also the where the Night Brothers live, which doesn't look that much more pleasant.
No.
Still spooky.
No.
Still spooky. Anyway. Yeah. Fantastic.
Great choice. Dathomir number 7, which means we're going to my number 6, and it's it's that point where we're getting towards the end. Do we go big? Do we go small? Where do we go? And I have one planet that I still kind of want to get in there that might be less discussed, less popular, but it has captured my imagination. So I'm going to go with it. I'm going to make this number 6. We're not even to top 5 yet. I am going to go with Kashyyyk.
Ooh.
I don't mean to go to the video game again, but that first Battlefront series was the first time I got to spend a lot of time on Kashyyyk, and it became for me a less of a trivia answer planet. You know where Chewie's from, Kashyyyk. To like a planet you can roam around on. And then there was those rumors going into Revenge of the Sith. We get some Wookiees, and then the trailer comes out. Chewbacca's in there. For better or worse, some people might have opinions on that. I like it. Love Tarful. And I remember walking out of the theater the first time I see Revenge of the Sith, so many thoughts, so much going on, so much excitement, but also having it's like, oh man, we didn't spend as much time on Kashyyyk that I wanted. He was just there. Fascinated with the landscape, fascinated with the size of those trees, and it just all made sense with Wookiees. So getting to spend more time there, both in stories and in video games, again, that Fallen Order game, and that even kind of, I had questions about it. It's like, I never thought Kashyyyk had a giant tree at the center of it and a giant bird attacking me. That was one of the more frustrating levels in the video game. But I love wandering around, and I just remember being pulled in by that video game, thinking, young Chewie roamed around here. You know, like this is a place. You know, we don't answer a lot of would you like to live on a planet? And Kashyyyk is the answer, but I think I could survive on there. I love those huts. I love hut living up in the trees. I think I could be okay with there. For a planet that was also mythical as Chewbacca's homeworld, to finally get to spend time, to finally see it, I just think it's a great planet to explore, and happy to put it at my number 6 choice.
I think it's a great choice, and it lived in my foggy memories from watching the Star Wars Holiday Special live on November 17th.
Wow.
And
wow.
and I was so young, I had no idea it was dopey or weird. You know, also just like you're pretty much just wired to a television and taught to accept weird comedy and variety shows. But I remember being so fascinated, so terrified for that something bad things happening to Lumpy's doll. It looked great to be living up there among the trees.
Yeah. Right?
Amazing. And the big climax of the stormtrooper falling from a high place. And you know my opinion that is one of these staples of action adventure, sci-fi fantasy. If you want to make a fight better, put it on a high place so people can fall. And that stormtrooper falling at the big climax there lived in my imagination, and the idea of living among the trees. And then if bad people come for you, you could just push them over.
Just push them.
Just push them. It's fine. It's a much better society. If bad people come to you, just push them from the high place you live in. Easy. Yeah. But to then see it in full on live action, it was fantastic. And like George Lucas, always with the little twist, is like, hey, so I understand you guys been wanting to see Chewie's homeworld where he lives among the trees. Here's a beach.
Yeah.
There's still trees, but it's not like the battle's up in the trees. It's mostly on the beach. One of my favorite shots in Revenge of the Sith that happens in the little the tree compound when that bolt of fire hits near Yoda, and he kind of raises his leg in his butt in an annoyed way. Like, stupid violence.
I've always thought it's a separate podcast, but I've always thought, like, man, we were like one laser bolt away from Yoda being dead. Like, he didn't seem to be completely like, oh crap, that's kind of it. He was mesmerized by the magic of Kashyyyk, the beauty. You touched on something that I didn't realize, that, you know, I see Revenge of the Sith 2005. I'm at 29, so I'm not a kid anymore. But I grew up, I said by the beach, but I grew up on a cold beach that, much like we're still 2 hours south of Santa Cruz, but a lot of pine trees on our beaches up in Pismo Beach in that area. So I think maybe I subconsciously connected to that too. Big trees on a beach, I'm in. That's my beach.
Yeah, I loved how it looked in Revenge of the Sith, misty and mysterious, the way it does by Pismo Beach.
Absolutely. So there you go. All right, we are now into the top 5, sir, with your number 5 choice.
Okay, maybe this one should be higher, but I want to be sure to put it on, and I'm going basic from the prequel era, and that is a Coruscant, a planet that I read about in a book and called Coruscant until I was corrected by a friend. I've talked about it many times. Is that I just hung out with him at our annual bar crawl. And his first words to me were, "Hey, I've met that author, and it's Coruscant, not Coruscant." Thank you.
No one would fault you for that. No one would fault you for that.
But Coruscant sounds like some sort of like weird song from a musical about some mean rich guy telling kids you can't do things. Coruscant. Coruscant. But it is Coruscant. The whole planet is one big city. That we're so used to it now. um,
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
being a central part of Star Wars. We've got to spend a lot more time there, and we're going to probably spend even more time there in animation and live action. But remembering the perspective of those of us who grew up with the original trilogy, and we saw cities, we saw civilizations, but so much of it was about environment and about rebels hiding in nature and being connected to nature. So this idea that pulled Star Wars a little bit more from the fantasy into a little bit more of kind of a solid science fiction about civilizations and cultures and architecture was so cool. Remember reading about it, remember seeing it in comics in the 90s and thinking, this is fantastic. Um, so then to get to see it in all of its glory in the prequel era, and I think the design is so good, pulling from like films like early science fiction films like Metropolis, and that idea of like
Mm-hmm.
it is a class system, physically built as a class system, and this idea of that it is the good and the bad of civilization, of that it is all of these different species living together, but it is also sort of consuming the planet. And I love everything that's really developed about the mountain that gets swallowed and you can only see the peak, and it's the one bit of nature left on Coruscant, which is dealt with a lot in books, and we got to see it in the Mandalore season 3. Anyway, all that said, I think the reason I really wanted to include it, there's a ton of stuff I love about it and its design, but going back to the emotional of like Hoth meant something to me because it helped me cope with the hard parts of where I grew up. um I was born in a very small town and then lived in suburbs, and then spent a little bit of time in Portland, Oregon, and thought that was fantastic. Then we moved back to Minnesota and we lived in a small town. Then we lived in a slightly larger small town. Then we lived in the suburbs. And finally, when I was 10 years old, we really lived in the metro area proper. And I just love cities because there's so much there. There's a diversity of people. There's a diversity of experiences. There's a diversity of shops and all these things. I really became a city person because I grew up around not city, and then city opened my eyes to more experiences. Um, and I recently visited Minneapolis, where I worked for a long time downtown in the Minneapolis Skyway systems, which is kind of like Coruscant. Of most of downtown is connected by skyways, so you can live a life where it's hurting now, but back then when I was there in the late 90s, early 2000s, you could get everything you needed without ever going outside. There were apartments that were connected to the skyways, so I fantasized about living there. You could walk to work. You could have fine dining experiences. You could buy all your clothes. You could get flowers for a loved one. You could do anything without ever leaving the skyways. And I kind of loved that weird, sealed in community that was so alive and so urban, but also so like contained in its own little weird community. And I feel like the skyways of Minneapolis in their heyday were like, that's kind of what it must be like to live on Coruscant.
Totally.
And I have such a great love for that experience, that time of my life, and that's why I love Coruscant.
Right. I love that description of it. It all makes sense, and I'm so glad you chose this. I absolutely think it has to be on there. And yeah, there was, not even a mystery. You got to spend a lot of time on it, but it comes out of, Zahn, right? The Thrawn novels, right? The first time that I think I said it wrong too. Also, I still every once in a while hear Jake Lloyd's mispronunciation of it from the Phantom Menace doc, and I think Coruscant I say a lot sometimes accidentally, just can't get out of my head. But it shows up. We spent a lot of time on it. I remember even first, you had, before the special editions, stuff had got out of some of that concept art that we would see. And I remember thinking, oh crap, like we're going to the like the Imperial Planet City, like we're going there. And I remember telling a friend of mine like how excited I was. So to actually spend some time on there, a lot of time on there in the prequels, was amazing. I do think that I count this planet as one of those things that even if you had some issues with the prequels, maybe you still have some issues. This comes up a lot as, yeah, but that planet's pretty cool, or the big city planet's fun. Like I still hear that every now and then. But then flash forwarding to this new era, a lot of publishing, a lot of time in comics, but remember when like the only sliver we had of Coruscant in the modern era was that background shot in Rogue One, and how I just remember spending time here, time in other places, and time in real life off podcasts talking about, oh, I want to go back there because it was a modern look at it now with the technology that the prequels help establish. Now we're in a better spot where it could maybe feel even more realistic, and I'm just fascinated with living there. Maybe I should move to Minneapolis. And then to come back and just I love the time we spend there in Endor. And I know they made a lot of choices to shoot as best they can in real world places out there and turn it into something that feels real, feels lived in, feels walkable. Even it needs a little bit more Dex's Diner in Endor, but there's some stuff that they show that keeps that itch going. But I just love it. I just absolutely feel they nailed the aesthetic, and feels what it would be like living there. And so, of course, it remains absolutely one of my favorite planets and a contender for a place I'd live to.
Absolutely. And I love how much Attack of the Clones connected it with the Los Angeles tradition of noir, with the sort of the lonely neon and all of that vibe that was added for Obi-Wan's sort of detective story. So another vote there for Coruscant.
Another vote there for Coruscant. All right, moving up to my number 4 choice. I think it had to come up at some point. I've said too many words on it in the past, so I'll just get to the point. The forest moon of Endor. We'll count that as a planet. The whole planet is a forest in Northern California. What else can we add to this that we haven't said before? It's a sequence. Some of my favorite sequences happen there. Love the Ewoks. Over the years, have come to love them even more because it was so close to. I didn't grow up like in a forest. I had a beach by me with trees, but like not too far from this, and even kind of learning early on in this this book I've been sharing, like learning here, like, oh wait, we could drive there. We could drive to Endor. Just kind of increased my obsession with it. And it is as someone who enjoys a cabin in the woods, absolutely Bright Tree Village is one of my spots that I want to live. But also, it's just everything it represents. It's a story about the organic versus the mechanical, going to this big kind of almost magical forest that you can't fully understand, that you're out of place if you're not connected with the land there. I think it really works as a wonderful backdrop for a forest. It isn't just, and I don't think any of them are just, hey, let's make this planet snow, let's make this forest. Maybe they start there, but I think they all have great purpose, especially in the original trilogy. I think maybe they don't get as much credit for that. And then expanding it in other stories, including Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor, and going to some other parts of the land that I don't know if I fully agreed with as a kid. Forget the quality of the film, whether you like it or not. Just I was like, I don't know. I think it's all forest for me. I don't think there's any clearings. I don't know. There's a castle with some villain. I don't know. But yeah, remain obsessed with it, from playing the Ewok hunt mode on Battlefront and getting to not just being Ewok, but roam around the land anytime. And a lot of the missions on Endor are hard in video games. That first Battlefront 2015, the survival mode on Endor, really hard. You got to run around the forest, up the hills, down the creeks. It's a great location to have a lot of fun, big important battles, and also connection. Leia, Wicket, all that stuff is there. I'll think about that forever. Love Endor. It's my
No, Endor is a fantastic choice, and I think you're really right to point out that the dismissive view of original trilogy planets is just sort of like, oh, they're not very creative, they're all just one environment. But yes, every environment, Tatooine is lonely and empty as far as the eye can see for Luke. When the rebels are on their back heels, they're at a inhospitable, hostile, desolate place on Hoth. And Endor is just full of life. I was thinking while you were talking about how much the choice, I'm sure it's practical, but it is also emotional, to shoot during the day, because a lot of times for it, how different would it have been if like night descended, the shadow of the Death Star came over, right? Or just night descended as the battle began and the Ewoks were coming out, from the darkness at the stormtroopers. Right? Probably a lot of Gen X people would have thought that was 10 times as cool if they're just like crunching sounds in the darkness and the Ewoks' glowing eyes burst from the trees. But it is so not that. It is so coded as nature and chutzpah, for lack of just old technologies, being creative to deploy old technologies in a way that's going to work, technologies that are of that environment, rocks and ropes. And there's so much about Endor that is really cool. To just be like, oh, they got their tree houses. That's great. Oh, the speeder bike chase in the trees is so, oh my God, I'm going to run into a tree, like all that. But there's so much about the way it's coded, the way it's shot, what happens there, that is just all full of meaning, beautiful, organic meaning.
Indeed, and I hope we get to go back there. I know in Rise of Skywalker we spent a brief moment there, and I'm glad they didn't go fully to the planet. I think coming in, I thought we were going to return. Now we know it's another planet we got to spend time on, but I'm open to that return to Endor. Maybe that's the film. Maybe that's the next Ewok adventure. Return to Endor. That's number 4, but we're up to number 3.
Oh no, that means I need to make choices. Which one of my runner-ups will make it? And now we're really down into, is Ken gonna do that one or not? Yes. And I got to decide between prequel and OT. This is terrible. I was too busy thinking about Endor. Damn, Ewoks distracted me from my choice, Ken. All right. This is hard, but I got to do it. Well, no, you might. Should I do the one that my heart is telling me, or should I take the chance that you're going to do that one?
I mean, I got a couple I haven't crossed off yet, but and it's late in the game, but you can still have a wild card choice. But I know I'm leaving some planets off the table that we just spend a ton of time on.
Okay, I'm just gonna go with my heart, like Jennifer with the air taxi when we were talking about vehicles in the prequels.
Yes,
my number 3 is going to be pretty much the opposite of Endor, Mustafar.
There you go.
Yeah, you probably had it on your list, right?
That might have been my next choice. So you both freed me and stressed me out.
I know. I was looking at it and it's like, it's between this and another one, and Ken would probably do it because you have a great video game memory of this planet.
Yeah.
But I went with my heart. We've talked a lot about planets as as design, as a way to support the emotional story, as environments. I love Mustafar because it is a metaphor as a stick that George Lucas decided to beat the audience over the head with in a beautiful way. Where was Darth Vader born? On a planet that hates itself, on a planet that's exploding with energy, red energy, that needs shields to contain the fury. It's just, sometimes the obvious answer is the right answer. That's a thing that I'm thinking about a lot of as a creative person, of like, when am I trying to be too clever by half? And when is just, you got the one idea and you want the audience to feel it. So you just take that one idea and you multiply it 87 times and you turn it up by 11 so people feel that one idea. And that is Mustafar to me. It's a planet with a fun, cool background. We've learned a lot about it, of like, it wasn't always like this, but there were Sith experiments and there was this and that, and it became this. And of course there are Mustafarians who live there and work there, and it's a place of industry, and they got these shields, and the shields come down, and blah 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 blah. All this practical stuff you can learn in a guidebook about Mustafar. But the experience of seeing it in Revenge of the Sith is, what's going on inside Anakin Skywalker? Well, it's exactly what's going on outside Anakin Skywalker, and we all get to see it. And man, does that pop when we get to the Kenobi series. And Kenobi is haunted by what happened on that hell planet. The heat, the violence, everything that is Anakin's version of the dark side. We'll get into the planet sequel era planets in another episode, but I love Mustafar even more as not just a symbol of the dark side, but as a symbol of Anakin's connection to the dark side. It's fury and explosions and rage and pain and regret. Unlike Exegol, which I think is Palpatine's cold, dry, just suck the moisture out of you by hearing the sound of that lightning. It's a different manifestation of the dark side. But Mustafar is just all Anakin. And it's almost like, I don't know when Lucas came up with it, but it was like, Lucas was like, well, what should that planet be called? Let me think about what would be fun for Ian McDiarmid to say. And that's what I'll name it. Mustafar.
Yes. Mustafar. Well said. Was my next choice. So happy to discuss it here. I think it belongs here. And you're absolutely right. I love that George was like, yeah, Anakin's going to go into hell. Oh, like hell? No, into hell. He's going into hell. That's what we're doing. Part of the planet's mystique is, again, a lot of what we're talking about, especially in prequels, prequel era stuff and Clone Wars, is things we had heard about or imagined. And then when you get to see it and it gets to kind of be played out in front of you, and it really, in this case, exceeds your expectations. The Return of the Jedi novel, we get kind of the reveal that some kind of molten lava planet or accident happened with Vader. The concept art of what I think was more of like an Imperial city or down below it or Palpatine's lair. The Macquarie art of the Emperor on a throne and lava around it and Vader and Luke in front of him and all that stuff that kind of emerged through the years, created the mystique. And then that first trailer. I don't love trailer reactions as a format. God bless those that do. God bless those that do it. Ain't my bag, man. But if trailer reactions were a thing in 2005, I should have done one. The first moment you realize, I don't even know if we knew it as Mustafar. I can't honestly remember.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was the movie that did it, but to see in the trailer, oh shoot, because I would have not sworn at that time. We are going to that planet. We are going to the thing promised in the novel. We are going to the thing promised just in lore and playground rumors.
Yeah, back at trading cards and action figures.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And to actually get there and then to go there and spend time with it. And yes, the video game story you've touched upon, I've said before, but for those that are maybe relatively new to ForceCenter, as someone who had some complicated and confusing thoughts on the prequels and some things that I didn't like, some things I know I still struggle with. I get it, but it was that Battlefront game, the second one in either late 2005 or early 2006, where you got to roam around Mustafar, and I was playing one specific day. I was a clone trooper on Mustafar, and Padme's ruminations were playing. And it was like, check, check, check. I think I love these more than I'm telling myself, the films. I think as just a Star Wars fan, we can nitpick on acting, dialogue, all those things we talked about then, things that still come up now. Got it. But just as a planet and a location and a world that I felt, oh my gosh, this is Star Wars, it took that video game. And so I'm forever thankful for that video game, but also thankful for expanding lore and spending more time there, exploring it. Even now in the comics, you're right, this could be a planet that shows up in our sequel discussion, but knowing that the planet maybe was a little more green or a little more normal, and then it too fell into darkness, much like Anakin, it just adds to it. Love this planet. And yes, it might be. Dathomir's great, but Mustafar is maybe the most fun to say.
Oh, yeah, Dathomir is the best sounding, but Mustafar. And it contains one of my favorite, maybe intentional, jokes in Revenge of the Sith of, I'm going to take you somewhere safe. The Mustafar system. It's a volcano planet. Safe!
And final note, when I saw I went with Billy Patterson, old Billy Biz from Doug Defends. We went and saw the 20th anniversary screening, one of the showings, and seeing it again on the big screen for the first time in 20 years, I saw that Mustafar's got stuff going on there in the background. It's got cities, it's got buildings. It's got people work. I know the people are working and this and that, but I think for so many years I just thought of it as that one location and then Vader's castle. But here it is, just a couple months ago, just going, oh wait, there's lights in the background. There's stuff going on. People are having dinner.
Yeah, some people with some really high end binoculars going, what the hell's going on over there?
What are they doing?
Why'd they turn the shields off? Yeah,
makes me want to go back there even more.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I've made a mess of our list. I could have just had the patience and waited for you to bring up Mustafar.
It would have happened, but I'm down to what are three possible choices, and they're all big. So maybe that
Mm-hmm.
means we can't go wrong. But I do think I have to go to what might be the perfect planet in Star Wars, and that is
Oh.
Naboo.
Ah,
I
nice.
think Naboo. Number two choice. Could it be number one? Maybe. I don't know. It is the hey, where would you want to live in Star Wars answer that is
Mm-hmm.
said perhaps the most, including by us at times. Because why wouldn't you want to live there? Everything
Mm-hmm.
about it, everything that you see. I'd even spend a weekend in Oda Gunga. Like, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. But talk about a planet that has great thematic purpose. It's not just this lush, pretty planet. It is a planet that has a lot of division, has just straight up segregation. It's got a lot of things going on, and shows up in a movie that the main theme is, if we all work together and led with empathy, compassion, this symbiotic circle would help everyone. It'd be pretty good. And we got this ruler, our beloved Padme, who is the one to bend the knee, the one to apologize for past transgressions, the one to move forward. And it all happens on that planet that is still in terms of design, and again, a franchise that even we're joking today, the whole planet is ice, it's beach, it's this and that. To go to this planet, it had so much to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It had highlands, lowlands, it had shack fields, it had Otagunga, the planet core.
Mm-hmm.
It is just
Lake
one of the most
country.
lake country. Yeah, right. And again, I haven't gone to Lake Como in real life there. I know friends that have. One day I'll get there. It is just, like I said, I think it's kind of the perfect planet in terms of telling story, thematic purpose, its beauty, its design. And going back there, even in Endor, to watch some troopers get blown up on a bridge, we get all excited for it. And it's one of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite Lego lands to roam around with on Lego games. Love Naboo. It is my number two choice.
I think that's great. Yeah, the feed generator. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we do see a lot of environments. We see this sort of foresty area where Qui-Gon meets
Right?
Jar Jar. Obviously, we go into the water to see Oda Gunga. Then the kind of big rolling prairie-like hills that
Mm-hmm.
the battle takes place in with the Gungans. Then we see the lake country, and there's a lot of different environments. A little bit more foresty again with the big trees, the sacred place of the Gungans.
Right?
Yeah, I feel like Naboo in some ways is Lucas often has a lot of criticisms of societies and organizations, right? And there is
Right.
a criticism of Naboo ultimately in that they had this separation between the Gungans and the humans on Naboo, and there's the criticism of this is where Palpatine came from. But there's a
Right.
lot about Naboo that's like feels like George's answer to like, well, what is the right balance? It's like, well,
Yeah.
this society is still very, very attached to nature. It is ancient. Look at those statues in the Gungans'
Mm-hmm.
sacred
Mm-hmm.
place, but it's technologically advanced.
Mm-hmm.
But even in their technological advancement, in their sort of high class civilization of all this beautiful architecture and art and design of clothing, it's all imbued with meaning, and almost all of it is imbued with a connection to nature. Like when you're designing and you're doing art, like you can be a little bit more like Mandalore, which kind of added a hard edge to everything, whether it
Mm-hmm.
needed it or not. And Naboo is the opposite of like, well, we've got all of these big imposing structures. Let's make sure most of them are round so they
Mm-hmm.
feel like a circle in an invitation. We have all of these, elaborate, meaningful gowns and for our political leaders, but let's make sure that they're flowing. There's so much into the design of it that feels like Lucas kind of saying like, if a society could strike balance between its connection to nature and in a society built out of intelligence and empathy and creativity, this is physically what it would look like. Ancient
Mm-hmm.
and wise, but also like open and looking to the future. Naboo is just like this beautiful, like let's live like that. Let's live like Naboo.
Mm-hmm. See, that's why it's the perfect answer for where do you want to live. That or Italy. That might be the answer. That might be the answer. No,
Yeah.
well said. No, well said. Yeah, so much there. And it's a planet, again, going back in Endor, it's great. Even the comics or the video games where we return to it with classic characters like Leia, which, of course, the connection there is great. I'd still revisit that planet. I'd love to see Han roaming around this planet, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Chewie. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I want to go on the history tour that they eventually set up and take you to the Theed generator and like, this is where Maul died. Yeah.
Indeed.
All
right.
Well, this is hell.
Yep. And we've already answered hell, so.
Yeah. I got two choices, and one is the one I'm going to go with, and the other one I'm ashamed to leave off. In childhood me is hates my guts for leaving it off the list. But for number one, I gotta go with Tatooine. I know it's the obvious choice, and maybe it's even the choice that makes people roll their eyes because there's a complex relationship with Tatooine in that we are introduced to it in the first film as a nowhere planet, far away from anything, a planet that a young, adventurous soul like Luke Skywalker would be desperate to escape. And then we as an audience can never escape it. We've talked about how, well, we come back to it because there is legacy there with the Skywalker family. We come back to it in a large part because Jabba the Hutt is there, which means it's not actually a nowhere place. It's a nowhere place from Luke's experience. But we learn in the course of Star Wars storytelling in the Lucas era that it is a hub of crime, largely probably because of its location, because it's also the inciting incident of the Clone Wars film that the Jedi want. Is it the Clone Wars film? That the Jedi want, right? It's an important thoroughfare in the Outer Rim territory. Anyway, I think Tatooine, and I understand people getting frustrated with people going back to Tatooine a lot and wanting to see more of Naboo or Bespin, like I do. But I think we come back to it for reasons, and because we keep coming back to it, because of Jabba the Hutt, because it's part of the classic hero's journey for the hero to return home having changed, which I think is part of what's happening in Return of the Jedi, that it is important for Luke to come back there and see it with new eyes because of the experiences that he's been through. But every time we come back to it, it gets a little bit more rich and a little bit more complex because we learn more about the civilization. We got to see Mos Eisley, a wretched hive of scum and villainy. We got to see Mos Espa and the sporting arena and the Boonta Eve Classic, and that built up a little bit of the culture. The knowledge that slavery was allowed there and seeing what that society and life was like in the prequels. But then going so far into our own future is Book of Boba Fett. Well, he comes back there, because he's narratively tied to it. But in going back to it, we get to see not just the sort of negative view that Luke had of it, but we get to see an agrarian society of like farmers and folks who want to live in a small agrarian community through Cobb Vanth's eyes. We get to see so much more about the indigenous population and how long they've been there, that they've been there before the seas boiled. And I think it just becomes this lodestone that starts with just the meaning of it is space Modesto. It is space small town where you want to go see the big city. You want to go see what's out there for you. But by going back to it again and again and again, it becomes reflections of all these different ways of living, from an urban lifestyle in Mos Espa to a rural lifestyle by seeing Cobb Vanth's community. I'm forgetting both the names of Freetown, right?
Freetown, most
Freetown. Right? Yeah. Freetown, right?
Most it's Pelgo, Freetown
right?
now.
It's Freetown now, right? To the joy of the indigenous community and the way they live in concert with the land. Yeah. It really is, I think, what Luke has always intended in his world building of, you want it to be cool, but you want it to reflect different ways of living and who we can be as a society.
Well said. We could end there. This to me is the answer for this topic, and I think I know some of the ones you left off. We'll share some of those close calls, but it's the standard bearer. It's the gold standard. It is what we all look for in new Star Wars planets, not just for what they look like and feel and whatnot, but just what the amount of stories that can be contained there. I think you've said this before over the years, and I really agree with it. Of just like, yeah, it's the planet farthest from for Luke, and there's some truth to that. Biggs kind of might reinforce that in those deleted scenes, but that's also. I grew up in a small town, and I wanted to get the hell out of there because this was far from everything. That's not necessarily true, and there's a lot of people that do want to live there. You think of Mos Espa. Look at all those people who showed up for the race. Look at all those people, who just want to have a good job. Almighty daimyo. There's people there that have made a living. You're right. The connection with Jabba, the Hutts, and everything. The importance of it as that continues to roll out. That's been part of the fun. Do I understand when people say, Tatooine, do we want to go back there? I do. And so maybe we won't see it for a bit, and that's fine. But every time we go back there, we learn more. I enjoy my time there. And the proof is in the pudding. We've talked about video games the entire episode, so I'll go there again. But in Star Wars Outlaws, a game that promised the ability to roam a little bit more than other Star Wars games. I still don't think it's as open world as I would like it to be, but it's pretty open. But the planet that was the one I was most looking forward to exploring was Tatooine. And they do a great job with it, by the way. There's so many just, talk about all the locations on the Naboo, but so many things, the Dune Sea and Anchorhead and all the references and all the places. Every time you get to go there, it's exciting for me to, in that Star Wars nerd sense of, ooh, we've always heard about that. Or, Cammy and Fixer showing back up as part of the Tatooine lore and in the Boba Fett series. Kenobi, working at an old whale factory. Like, it's just, you continue to learn more about it. Every time you go back, it is, to me, not just, I don't have that feeling like Luke had when we go back there. I love it's so Star Warsy in the best of ways, and I think I judge every Star Wars planet against that, and Naboo as well. But I think I look at Tatooine as just a hotbed of action, despite what Luke thinks, and it's a absolute wonderful location for several stories to explore again and again and again. Tuskens, that's a great example. Going back to it in the post Galactic Civil War era to find droids at the bar, everything about it. And that's Cantina's Sanctuary. The Cantina is a specific location, but I count it as part of just the planet. And you and I have shared our young kids looking out at the world and being scared about what's out there, and the bar is one of it, and the bartender more specifically, Wuher. So it's all there. I love going back to Tatooine, and we'll continue to explore it as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah. I think my closing Tatooine arguments is I think it is some of the most important ideas in Star Wars to me are the idea from a certain point of view that we're hearing things from specific people's perspectives. And I think Star Wars always argues for empathy. And I think we meet Tatooine from Luke's perspective, and it's valid from his perspective. It is boring, and he wants off that rock. But then as the years go on, we go back and we get other people's perspective. And, I said a lot about city living, but I understand the allure of small towns having lived there. And there are people, many people, probably people listening to this, who love a small, tight-knit community. And I love that we go back on Tatooine and go, well, that was Luke's take, but there are people who love this small, tight-knit community, this rural and agrarian society, and, the Tuskens. And so I think it becomes, in all of its storytelling, a great tale of empathy.
Love it. Well, that's our list. Mygeeto, Hoth, Mandalore, Dathomir, Kashyyyk, Coruscant, Coruscant, Endor, Mustafar, Naboo, and Tatooine. But that doesn't mean other planets weren't high on our lists in our hearts. What are some of the ones that didn't make it? And I I think I could guess one of the big ones, but I'll let you say.
Yeah. Well, I'm despising myself for leaving Dagobah off this list.
Dagobah.
Dagobah, the Empire Strikes Back is my favorite. It is the closest to my heart. Luke's journey on Dagobah means meant a lot to me as a kid, and every time I revisit it, I feel like I get something new out of it. And I think that Yoda's trying to get Luke and the audience to really understand what the force is of it between you and me, the land, the ship, the rock, the tree, and it just being crawling with life is so important to the understanding of how Star Wars relationship with the rigid versus the flowing and the organic. Dagobah is such a great example of that, and the world building, the R2 peeking through in the rain, and the tree of evil, the dark side tree cave, and the mythic nature of that. There's the swamps swallowing the X-wing. There's so much about Dagobah that is just so fantastic. It means a lot to me. So I'm sad that I left it off the list.
That's probably one of the ones we'll get the most "how could you" comments, which always leave your choices down there. That's fair, but Dagobah's on the list. I also would think it's. I was going to put Bespin on the list too, but I think in the end,
it's not a planet, right?
It's not a planet. City. I mean, yeah,
Bespin is a planet, but what I'm attached to is Cloud City, right?
Yeah. So I think that's why I put it up there. Yeah, no, Dagobah. I think what holds Dagobah back for me is that simple question of where would you want to live. It's definitely not Dagobah.
I picture the shots where Luke sits up and he's just got nothing but brown on the back of his pants, and he's like, no,
yes, I'm good. Swampy, murky water. But it's important to the Star Wars story there. A couple more for me, and here's some more for you. Definitely wanted to consider Camino. I love, and the tragedy of losing a Bad Batch, but just talk about the whole planet's an ocean. Like I obsessed with it, obsessed with the design of it. Just absolutely love going back there. And Geonosis was another one for me. It's just such a great design.
Yeah, Geonosis. Yeah, the whole hive. Yeah. Oh, especially with the more we explored in the Clone Wars, we learned more about the hive community and the Queen and the tunnels. And now I feel bad about that one. Camino is on my list too. Of that was a common conversation for original trilogy era people of running down the list of environments and be like, what if they made a planet that was all water? And then late in the run of the original Marvel Star Wars comic, there was an all water planet. And when Attack of the Clones came out, it's like, you did it. You finally did it. You achieved the dream. And then the design of the Kaminoans and the Iowa, the air whale, great.
I love that there. Any other close choices for you? Close calls?
Felucia. I really like the whole planet is big flowers, and some great Clone Wars episodes happening on Felucia. So that was another one. And I'll sneak Alderaan in there. Another kind of picture of refinement, and another like the planet is all beautiful mountains. No, absolutely. And we did spend enough time in there. Thanks to Revenge of the Sith. It counts. We spent time there. And in the Clone
Wars. There you go. Yep. Yeah, and in Clone Wars too. Yeah. There you go. That's our list. We got 10 choices. We know there's more out there. So all you Christophus fans, go ahead and leave your comments down below. If you're watching on YouTube or you're out and about in social media land, find us on ForceCenter Pod, at ForceCenter Pod, and let us know what your choices are, or if you agree with some of ours, and where would you like to live in a Star Wars planet. We're going to continue this, I'm sure, in future Star Wars ranks with the sequel era and all the other Disney TV era, all those things that we have out there to choose from. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You can get merch down at Fourth Wall or at our TeePublic shop while it's still going. Podcast is available in a lot of spots. Just search, you'll find us. Don't forget, on Sundays, we release audio only. The Databank Brawls from 2016 to 2020, we're re-releasing them. A lot of fun to go through that. Not just the old episodes, but what we thought, said, and may have gotten wrong about Star Wars future back in the day. You can support us at patreon.com/ForceCenter as well. That gets you into our Discord. Follow me at CadNapsuck or my website, cadnapsuck.com. Sir, where they can follow you.
Yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky and Instagram at Joseph Scrimshaw is my handle everywhere. Also, Facebook these days. I've got a professional thing now, so find me there. And you can check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for links to all the other stuff I'm doing. My film and my blog, Finish Your Monsters. Go check that all out. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all. There you have it. Star Wars has been ranked.